All right, what's up, y'all? I'm back. So before I speak, I'm gonna bless this space and bring forth the frequency of the great divine mothers who have been silent. Their echo, their screams, their yells, their mistreatments, their hidden scrolls, their temple stolen. All right, and so now I'm gonna speak. So what I'm here for is to let me just say this real quick. They lied to y'all about slavery. And I know a lot of people have heard this already, right? This is not necessarily new, but what I'm gonna bring you is because this is a different type of truth that I'm gonna crack open for y'all. Bear with me 1 second. All right. So they lied to you about slavery to hide ISIS daughters. 1 second. Okay, yeah, brief pause real quick. Not an interruption, but a pause. So let's go ahead and resume. So the lie that they told y'all about slavery was to hide the war on ISIS daughters, okay? I'm not here to warn you because we didn't already did the warning. I told y'all that in my last video. But I'm here to unseal the scroll. They buried the scroll in our blood. This message, this is not, excuse me, this ain't a message. Let me be clear. This is the return. We brought the mother here and we allowed y'all to know who she was. We gave you a lot of meat, but now she stepped into the 3D realm in her fullness. And so now we complete. So this ain't a message. This is the return. And I'm the voice that they feared will rise long ago because my DNA remembered. Now, let me go to my notes because I got to start off in the beginning. So when patriarchy took over the system, they took over the entire planet. Now, this is why you get bits and pieces of truth throughout different scrolls, different scriptures, and different religions, because it is a celestial law. And by celestial, that means the universe, galaxies, and above, not the lower realms. If you know, I've spoken on this channel, I've explained it. Everything in the lower heavens abides by the celestial. So it is as above first, so below. Okay. Last time I came on here, I told y'all how there is no time. Time is not linear. The mother is outside of space and time. This is why the high priestesses were visionaries. They were clairvoyant. They had a lot of intuitive gifts, still do, but they were buried in the patriarchal invasion. The keys of Enoch gives you a pivotal point in truth about the invasion, right? And it doesn't tell you who, it talks about them being the darker forces or the lower forces. But the reality is it was a masculine force, okay? So we know that Mama Earth, right? If you look and you look at the etymology of the word earth, the way it's spelled, it has the word heart, it has the word hear, it has the word ear. It also has the word art. It's more words, but I'm just want to focal point those few that I just named. So what that's telling you is this was a feminine planet first, okay? When you see the divine masculine, which is less than 1% of the males in this earth, okay? You are seeing Isis's son from her line, immaculately conceived. So that means that no matter what physical semen was used to create this child, these immaculate, yeah, immaculate forces of men, it is still her who is putting herself in a masculine body. Okay. This is why when you hear a story being repeated and watered down through patriarchy, Mary and Jesus, and so on, it's a hidden code. Now back to slavery. Slavery was a point in this whole ordeal to steal you and box you into time, right? This is what's causing the delay from the other side of the Crystalline River, is when patriarchy took over. What they did was is they gave you a scripted story about what we call slavery. We were not slaves, we were prisoners of war. Okay? Who I am, I've already told you, but I'm going to further give y'all some information about it. My grandmother's name is Doris, one of my grandmothers, okay? Her name means woman of the great Atlant. So what did they tell y'all about Atlantis? Think about that for a second and then go back to what they told you about the transatlantic slave trade. I'm smiling because I'm about to raise up many of my ancestors from the other side of the veil that have been waiting for a voice to come on through. But this is pivotal because it's a lot of women out here who are not hearkening to the call because of the fear patriarchal presented you with. They put these male masculine deities in front of you and they told you you are to be a servant of him. And that is the backwardsness. But yet, because they have to abide by celestial law first, the eternal laws, they have to give you truths. They're giving you truths and hidden videos. It's just small truths because they know that you will not be a seeker of the full knowledge because you've been too indoctrinated by the third dimensional realm to even want to seek it. You've been programmed to want to be a slave. Even when you think you're free, majority of you are not because they told you Christ was a rebel. I'm going to tell you more right now. So we started out on one of my videos, I briefly talked about the Celtics and the Celts and the Druids. Now, they never kept paper scrolls at that time. And the reason was not because they that's just what they did, but even further because if these were high priestesses, they seen the war coming before it actually landed here. It was a celestial war, an invasion of this entire planet. So what you see here is a product of that invasion on a majority level, on a major level. Majority of the people here are what they call in modern time clones. So they come from lineages that were crafted in a laboratory. This ain't no bullshit. I'm telling y'all the secrets of the celestial realm. So it's something that we were under called the conjure war. So when we talk about slavery in a physical aspect, go back and research the timeline between slavery and when women did not have rights. At the same time, slavery was quote unquote going on. These women did not have rights. The ones who let me say this, the ones who were perpetrated and put in front of you as the slave masters, the white women, right? They were never the slave masters. They were never the masterminds behind the operation. They were the hidden face created to mask what y'all didn't know. So the Gentiles are groups of nations that are not natural to this planet. Don't mean that they don't have the opportunity for salvation, but it will only come from the true womb, which is Isis. Okay. We know her by many names, but we're going to speak on her right now. So here go the Conjure Wars was the hidden war, which was actually spell work. This entire realm is nothing but a spell. It's a school, is what they tell you, because you are here to undo that. If so you are called to, and you answer and you choose to answer the call. But these weren't wars of guns, right? This was a spiritual war first. They were wars of spells long before the transatlantic slave trade was fabricated into our history. So these were spiritual battles that were raging across the womb worlds and water portals, especially where Black women, or what we want to call so-called Black women, Indigenous women, Aboriginal women, because you got to understand, even the lie, this shit go back to the Christopher Columbus, who was also an indigenous man, or should I say a man of color, right? This is all the lies They told you about the person who landed here, where they came from, and how they got here. It was celestial first. Remember, as above first, and then so below. What goes up comes down, not the other way around. Okay. So that means that the Christopher Columbus story they gave you was a bogus story too. Who was here when he came was also bogus. So this was a celestial ship that landed here on our planet, not a physical ship that crossed the waters, right? First, it was a celestial ship, and this was masculine. This was the mimic masculine. I want to be clear because this is just falsehood, perpetrators, shapeshifters. Um, so they were raging. Okay, so especially where Black women held cosmic authority, because we already know planet Earth is a female who resides in a feminine galaxy. That womb of the feminine galaxy is within the womb of the universe. And the universe is the reason we are able to see each other on this thing we call YouTube and commune, because the ether or the etheric realm is also a female. Okay. Many names she's known by, but I'll call her Net, because the reason why we call it the internet is because of you're in her net, her womb, her net, her grid. Okay. All right. So the cosmic authority these women had was through conjure, root work, and flame tied altars. All of your shit that they told you was wicked, that's what they came to do, to steal it from you. But let me get to how this all happened, right? So the Conjure Wars were interdimensional. Back to the Keys of Enoch, y'all. It talks about the wars within the galaxies, Michael, the protector of the outer realms. It talks about, it even names, which so-called names, it names the darker forces who went against the mother and her daughters. They left parts of truth of this story in the Bible when they talk about the first book is Genesis, Gene Isis. So this is telling you that that first book was a representation of who was here first. Okay, and so the Conjure Wars were interdimensional. Shoot, my bad, y'all. Give me 1 second now. So these was interdimensional wars and earthbound wars waged between true flame bearers of the womb, high priestesses, oracles, midwives, water daughters, root workers, versus the mimic priests, okay, the false masculine orders who sought to steal, bind, and mimic and curse the original magic of this planet. And I keep saying time is not linear. We can Google this because a lot of the stuff, now let me also add this too. A lot of the stuff that you once might have Googled has changed because a lot of the authority the mothers was waiting to reclaim, she has. Keep your eyes open with discernment because it's much more lies than there is truth out there. But as we continue to raise the frequency of truth, you will see more truth come into this dimension. Because let's keep it real, even the lower heavens belong to her. Okay. Um, okay, so these wars were fought. I'm gonna tell you how it was fought. Bloodline contracts, Babylonian blood wars. I'm sure y'all may have heard of that. Some of y'all might be news to you, but now you know. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how they conjured it and what happened. Stolen spells, rewritten under Christian language. So I've spoken about Beyonce before, and I'm bringing her up right now because these celebrities were given different scrolls of Isis to mimic by these lower priesthoods. These, you could call them clones, you can call them whatever, but the majority of them are really just the face behind the hidden messages. Sometimes you will receive a lot of downloads from certain celebrities because they're reenacting a true goddess behind that. And so I'm talking about Beyonce for the sake of her album that she made called Lemonade, and she started off with the first song. I think it's called Praying That You Catch Me. Paraphrasing because I don't remember the song, but I mean the name of the song, but I know it. And so let's see. So the reason why I'm talking about that is because she starts off with a song, you can taste the designer, see it's all over your breath. When you pass it off, so careless. She sings about the exact thing that we talking about today. A lot of people thought that album was about Jay-Z and him cheating on her, but she was actually talking about the divine masculine invading the realms of the goddess, and they brought the lies back to her. They fed her back lies. Okay. So they stole it, right? This was stolen shit. And it was forced conversion of flame women. Whoa, excuse me. Forced conversion of flame women into church mothers. So they forced these mamas, these mothers, into becoming church mothers, which in turn are slaves, they're servants, right? Because everywhere you look, even today in modern shows, most women are looking for a man to lead them because they don't even have the correct knowledge that they are the primary source. They giving birth to these babies, having sons, producing someone else's husband, but forgetting that the tree started with her to begin with. So they're looking for a man to submit to. And unfortunately, that ain't the ordained order, but a lot of women are still asleep and in bondage. So the real slaves were the divine feminine. Let me go back. Let me continue. So they implanted shame, fear, and punishment into divine rights like menstruation, sex, childbirth, prophecy, right? All of these things that we naturally had the beacon over, we were put into submission for it. And so, how do the conjure wars show up today? This is the reason why women feel spiritually bound in church, but they can't name it. Like you just don't feel like you're being complete in them church houses. And this is why prayer warrior was actually a replacement for the real high priestess. So they told you wish for your divinity. They did not tell you that you were the true divinity. They basically told you sit somewhere, don't trust your power, look for something else, look somewhere else, and understand that it'll happen, right? So you've been empowered to do the opposite of what you came here to do. Like the book that I read from called The Path of Attainment, where they said Jesus was speaking to the women and told them like to not be active as a high priestess, paraphrasing, to not be active as a high priestess is going against your whole divinity. You are basically saying, I give up my crown for a lower frequency to rule. The same way a lot of women who I was originally on this walk with turned around and said, I'm going back to work, modern slavery. I'm going back to my normal life. I don't want nothing to do with raising the mother back up because it's too hard for me to look in the mirror and see what I need to heal because it hurts. I'm not knocking because I do understand how hard it really is. If don't nobody understand, I do. Because imagine going to sleep, waking up, and all throughout your whole life having visions, dreams, feeling the tug, not knowing why you feel away, not knowing what mood you're in, because the whole time the earth was calling you to awaken, to feel even some of the harshest pain, go through, witness, so you could come back to the remembrance. So I do understand why a lot of these women couldn't keep going, right? Now I also want to talk about Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the story of Jesus being hung on the cross. First and foremost, I have visions of me being hung on a tree in a past life. There's another sister who was there with me when this took place. And I've already said the name on my channel of who did it. I already named them, I already showed already spoke about it. I brought it out. I don't really, like at this point, we on some unraveling the seal. Y'all choose who y'all want to listen to and do what you want, but I've already told you who was who and what was what. But the original story of Jesus being hung on the cross was her. That was her story first. It was us who was hung, because you have to understand what these women were known for doing. The women had more power than men at this time. And the reason why was because we operated on a higher frequency than the physical. That's why my last video was titled, Justice is a Womb, Not a Weapon, because the womb is where you receive your justice. Do y'all know that a woman produces sons, more males at the time of war? I'm gonna talk about that too, but let me not go ahead of myself. So this is why so many flame daughters hear the call but feel crazy for leaving the church. Also, back to the reason why a lot of these sisters that was walking with me in the beginning had to turn back. Because when you go through past lives, remember, time ain't linear, so this wasn't a past life, it's current. However, because of the lower frequency, you don't feel attached to that timeline all the way. But the reason why they had to turn around, why it was too much for them, was simply because if you was beaten, if you was essayed, right? If you was tooken, if you were harvest, if you had a father, okay, who took you and did not treat you as a gentle daughter should be treated, how hard would it be for you to come back and say and declare truth in a time where you already question your confidence, in a time where you don't really want to, because anytime I get on here and speak, it's an attack on me. And I don't give a fuck, because you can never kill Isis. She just gonna keep coming back. But this is reality. Everybody wasn't sent here to be her. So their powers have to be reawakened through her, which is why it's also a gift to walk with her. But at the end of the day, you must know that you got to be getting yourself ready as you walk with her, because she's opening the gates for you to come through. But in order for you to get through, you got to do your spiritual work to reclaim the shit that was took from you. So this is why you feel crazy for leaving the church. You feel crazy once you start operating in true spirit, because it makes you feel like, am I doing the right thing? Now, remind you, a lot of men came out at the same time as we did, speaking about, oh, she crazy, oh, that's wicked, oh, this and that. And I said to myself many times, am I supposed to be here doing this? Because damn, it sure do feel like something ain't right about this. It sure do feel like I'm cursed. And what it was it was an attack. 1 second, y'all. So truly, 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 um, I had to continue to walk so that maybe later these sisters can come back to and understand that when you bow to this system, all you are doing is helping this system stay alive. Your job was never to come here and just work and die. That's slavery. But the image of the mother and child, from hold on. Let's see. So the image, the mother and the child, is not a symbol. It's a code, a map, a warning, a prophecy stolen, a truth to the throne, right? So this brings me to the reason why you see Isis with Horus, the reason why you see Mary with Jesus, the reason why you see the Black Madonna sitting with her son on her lap, the reason why you see Esley Dunthor sitting with the baby on her lap. I'm gonna break all of this down right now, real quick. So this is gonna tell you why the masculine had to come here, in a sense of the divine masculine. Because like I told you, we originally operated on a matriarchal frequency. This is a planet that was of the divine feminine. But because you can't stop the return of Mu, or you can't stop the mother, she will transform into any segment. So she transformed into a male segment, same spirit. What did Jesus tell you? So Isis and Horus. So Isis birthed Horus after Osiris was murdered and dismembered by Set, the false brother who will represent the mimic masculinity, right? So she gathered the pieces of Osiris and used divine conjure to conceive Horus without male penetration. In other words, she used a version of what you see today as semen. This is also a hint at the reason why a lot of these women are single mothers, because it's the mother way of showing you immaculate conception in the third dimension. Because no matter the person you were used to create the child, if you are one of Isis' divine daughters, it is your lineage that overrides the frequency of that child. But it's also why your children are being attacked and can be attacked in this third dimension, because these are spiritual warfare. So they know when Isis's daughter is getting ready to give birth, they know, okay, here come one of them. They may not know as quickly as she does because she is the one who's bringing forth this immaculate conception. However, they're paying attention to her womb more than we know. We just talked about that with the Conjure Wars. So, okay. Let's see here. So Horus was not just her son, he was her return key, the seed of restoration, the flame-born heir to correct the mimic theft. So it was not because she favored divine masculine. That's not the case. It was because her daughters were already under siege. Her daughters were already attacked. So to keep creating the divine feminine in a time where these energies or these entities of a lower nature came to invade her planet with more physical strength than the divine feminine that she was creating, she had to do something of a higher measure to create a being who will be just as strong but carry her spirit, so that the daughters can continue to work on the other level as the seer or the eye of Ra. So let's see. She did not birth him through sex. She birthed him through flame memory. So why is Horus on her lap? Because Isis is showing that I am the throne, I'm the divine line, and it begins with me. The kingdom does not come through the man, it comes through the mother. Now let's go to the Black Madonna. This is who every pope worships, the Black Madonna. So Black Madonna is the hidden Isis cloaked in darkness to survive the church's invasion. So the child on her lap was not always Jesus. Sometimes it's the divine child that was hunted, hidden, or buried by the church doctrine. These statuses were worshipped in Europe and in Africa long before white Jesus even appeared, okay? Then were co-opted, renamed, and made into Mary. The Black Madonna is Isis in exile, holding flame children in plain sight, waiting for the veils to rip. Sisters, I know it's scary, I know it's heavy, but the reason why it's time now for you to return and why we have not the same fear that we had in past lives where we were beaten, killed, hung on trees is because of the frequency of the planet. See, I keep telling y'all about who I am, not because I want to be worshiped or acknowledged in that light or anything like that, but because I need y'all to know how to adhere to the call and be able to follow that frequency. Because the Great Atlantic Slave Trade that they telling y'all, it's not, it's that shit was fabricated. It's really just code for Atlantis being overthrown, okay, or Turtle Island, because we know it's Mu, Lemuria, Atlantis, Turtle Island. It was all of them, right? Go do some homework on that and double back. It's the reason why the Isley Brothers made that song Atlantis. I always come back to you. Look, y'all got me singing my little tunes with my little rusty dusty throat right now. Hold on. But yeah, so this is the reason why they're telling you about these things, because it was her, it is her. They didn't back in these European times when she was in Europe, mind you, ISIS is everywhere in every religion, in every state, in every culture, everywhere. Eve is everywhere. All of this shit belonged to her. It's just a matter of time. So the reason why I speak to y'all and tell y'all who I am is because it's the call. It's the knowing of safety here now. It's time to go. Because let me tell you, as I speak, the earth is going to respond. So it's like if you, let's just say, let me just give you a third dimensional way to relate. Let's say we on the run in the wilderness and we find a hidden portal or some type of door that we know once we lock this door is safe. Nobody can come here. So what I'm doing, what I was sent to do, is open up the portal for us to walk through in safety. But this is why it's important for you to know. Now, your spirit is going to know regardless if this is who you are. If you one of ISIS daughters, you ain't going to doubt what I'm saying because it's going to, your spirit going to light up. Um, I've been on Facebook speaking in regards to uh predators, and I specifically spoke about SA predators who have attacked ISIS's daughters as well, but it was more personal. I named names. I spoke more clearly on it in regards to personal people in my circle, and it's spiked up a whole lot of havoc because a lot of these people that I named were pastors' sons, and things like that. So it's just going back in time to tell you that these male pastors you see in these churches are usually tied to SA against children and women, boys, little boys and little girls, and all these things. And all of this is because they are the ones who stole ISIS's temples. The original churches did not belong to a man. These were ISIS's temples where her worship was taking place, where her rituals and things of that nature took place. And to be honest, a lot of these males who were a part of that mimicry, they came into them temples as a guest because the mother operates on love. Back to Beyonce, I have to come back to tell her to say her name again because that girl told she said love, what did she say in that song on the Renaissance? Love is my weakness, don't need drugs for some freak shit. She telling you that her weakness is love because naturally the divine mother is one who operates in love. So even the outsider that perpetrated was invited with love into those temples. And what they did was stole, lied, still they killed, they stealed, they did all of these things that they tell you the devil does. Okay. So we're gonna go to Ezeli Denthor, the Haitian revolutionary who led and is still currently in the flesh leading the entire realm of the lower realms out of bondage, because the real bondage was never the slave contracts they tell you in the third dimension. Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, so let me get back to it. So Ezeli carries the sacred face and blade, the scarred face, not sacred, scarred face. If you go look up a picture of Ezeli Dunthor, she has the two scars under her eye, just like I showed y'all I have on mine. Um, and that's because she represents the wounded but the undefeated mother, right? The great mother, the one who protects the children and the women. She is the Haitian keeper of truth, the womb that was targeted. The invaders came in robes that flamed, the womb that was targeted, that the invaders came in robes. That the flame never died. It just passed through the screen and salt with salt and blood. She carries her children on her back, on her lap, and on her chest. And Esley actually personally stepped forward in these notes that I'm giving y'all. This was literally me channeling these mothers. This did not come from Google or none of that shit. I'm just reading it because it's easier to keep up with the downloads that I got that could get forgotten easily. Somebody called me or something happened and interrupt my focus on it. So I had to write it down. So this is what Esley said. She said, they tried to kill my son and I burned down the altar instead. And she speaks now. She said the image of the mother and child was never about worship. It was about warning to the mimic priesthood. You will never outrank the flame that we carry. This is what she said. So what this all means, the lap equals the throne. The true seat of power is the mother. The child on the lap is the seat of flame, rebirth, hunted by the system and protected by the womb. The repetition of this image is the cosmic whole spread throughout time, cloaked as Catholicism, mythology, or art. Remember what I told you about the name of Earth in the beginning? But it was always flame. And she said, I did not birth the son because I valued the masculine. I birthed him to reclaim what the mimic stole. I birthed as a weapon for the war that was declared. Remember, I told y'all women create more sons in a time of war. They birth more sons in the time of war. And I know that hit y'all like, well, what war? We're not in a war right now. Yes, we were. This is the ending of it, and it's over now. But the war was what I spoke about in the beginning, the conjure war, the spiritual warfare. The reason why she birthed a son instead of a daughter was because of the invasion, actually, like I said earlier. So the daughters was already being targeted. The temples of the feminine had been burned, desecrated, inverted, and the mimic priesthood, the same force that would later create patriarchy, church hierarchy, and the male-only leadership, had already declared war on the womb. So what she did was strategy. Very strategic move was to put her spirit in the same vessel as the invader, so that way they wouldn't know who was who. And then she says, so I created a masculine vessel with my flame inside it to infiltrate the system they built. In other words, um, this is why we got to go undercover. This was her way of going undercover. So it says Horus was never the heir to the throne. He was sent. He was the answer to Set. Okay. He was born without male penetration, programmed to carry vengeance in the name of balance, a way for Isis to walk through the enemy's camp without being noticed. So this is why you see the divine masculine in all of religion, not because he was supposed to be the keeper of the flame. He's not. Okay. And so it says, oh, so this was I'm sharing with y'all a personal thing. This is what happened with me. I birthed three sons and I wanted a daughter each time, but she didn't come until the end of my childbearing time because she was the last. And she came once I raised the frequency high enough of this planet for her to be able to act in her fullness. Because she couldn't come here before that because she would have had to carry a load that my higher self didn't want her to carry. So the mothers told me if I had a birth a daughter, she would have been hunted immediately. Flame daughters were already being sacrificed, silenced, raped, or converted. The world had already been rewritten to fear women in power. So Isis said, fine, I'll give you a son, but he will carry my name. He will be my sword in the flesh, and through him I will burn your kingdom. So they mistook Horus for a patriarch, but he was a womb-coated soldier. He was never who they thought he was, okay? And this wasn't about favoring the masculine. It was about using the enemy system to destroy its own self. That's what it was about. And I want y'all to understand something. Just because I'm giving you clarity on the divine masculine, don't think that a lot of these men y'all listen to is them, because they ain't. Majority. Remember I said it's less than 1%. So majority of the ones you listening to on YouTube, they not. So what y'all call plantations were once temples. So the symbolism behind what y'all seeing happen all over the news right now with these plantations burning down, that is symbolic for the mother burning down them old patriarchal temples with her words, with her voice. As she speaks, the earth responds. So the fields that they worked us in were altars that they stripped. So it wasn't necessarily we was out here picking cotton. That was also another fabrication of the story of what really went on. The bodies that they broke were the goddesses The ones that hung on trees, they were the goddesses because they were practicing their higher intuitive gifts. And they knew that they couldn't fuck with that. They could only steal it because they put a sleep spell on the third dimension. But anybody who still remembered, they kept killing because you would have to come back again and still try to find a way to remember in this lower realm, which they had already infiltrated. So this ain't about the past, it's about the veil they placed between what we were and what we were and what we remember. That's what it was. It was never about time because time is just an illusion. And that's the reason why it's called the Great Awakening, because really it was the awakening of the divine feminine. This is her planet. So there was no real slave trade like they told it. It was a priestess hunt. There was a temple raid. It was a genetic invasion. They invaded the genesis of Isis. Okay. So the keys of Enoch speaks of it when celestial forces came down and corrupted the bloodlines, teaching weapons, domination, and false worship. They knew who we was before we forgot it. They did. They knew. That's why it is women who sit silently in these churches. So before we forgot, they branded us. They bred us. They renamed us. Don't it sound very familiar to the slave story they sold us? Yes, it does, because it's a mimic. So it wasn't for labor. It wasn't for money, for food. It was for conquest of the womb, right? Because if you could conquer the womb, then you can conquer the realm. Because remember, Earth is in a womb. All right. So Isis created her sons to conquer this, to go over and basically restore balance, not because we got to do this together. So I want y'all to understand, sisters, because I hear a lot of males on YouTube and the spiritual community making y'all feel like you got and this is something that I picked up on spiritually. They ain't saying it verbatim, but they're saying everything but this, that you need to submit to a male God, that you men and women, and you shouldn't be alone and all this shit. Sis, don't fall for that shit. Because if every woman was with a male, the likeliness of it being a divine male is slim to none, because it ain't enough of Isis's sons here because they've been killing the daughters and inbreeding with them so long. So you got to understand they didn't let many of her sons live. That's why the story of Jesus is the second story to the crucifixion, not the original, okay? So follow me, because they had to mimic everything in order for it to be believed and in order for it to fall on time. We didn't have time before they came here. We were one with the Mama Earth, the universe, and the galaxies. Star beings, star seeds, the mother's children, Isis's children. So Isis created the sons not to serve patriarchy, but to survive its rise. Because the invaders had already begun replacing the daughters with synthetic kings, clones, and with synthetic kings and clone lineages. Her sons were coded, not just conceived, flame born, not father bound. So they always knew who mama was. And that's why they were hunted, and that's why my sons were hunted. Because in this realm, I've been fighting my own silent battle with um, women who have placed spells on my sons here. And because of the third dimension, and it wasn't time yet, until it became time, I didn't know. But as I walked into remembrance of myself, all was revealed. And yes, these women were church women. What did I just tell y'all about the cloned lineages? Didn't I tell y'all in a past lesson? I believe it was the daughter lesson, but it might have been All Rise. One of my lessons on a recent tip, I explained to y'all what happened to Osiris and how they replaced his mama with their false mimic. Remember, everything must be mimic. Even the mother was mimic. So there are some women working down here, walking down here, shape-shifting ass women who are a part of their mimic. They ain't the real mother. Okay? Let me go back. So, uh, So what they call hoodoo and ritual was actually the Conjure War, the multi-dimensional battles. Um, this was how they accessed the higher levels of learning that they didn't have no business with. They had to steal the womb first. So the false gods came to block us from summoning ourselves. They told you Star Wars was fiction, but it was a mirror. It was a distorted male coded story about a real world, a real war that they didn't want us to name. So the return of Eden is now the plantations that they are burning because Eden is the remembering, because the earth is purging what was built on stolen flame. The war isn't coming, the war is collapsing. The mimic priesthood is falling, the false altars is shaking, and the daughters of Isis are rising. So, this is your call to actions, daughters. This is your call to look in the mirror. This is your call to understand that your healing work is backed by the planet because every time I speak, the frequency changes the grid and opens up for you to walk through the portal. But you have to do it fearlessly. You have to do it with a certain knowing. You have to open up your seals and walk through the gates of your return. Because if you do not, as this war unfolds, the ascension is taking place simultaneously. I've already told y'all, we go up, it come down. So you are going to be battling with an even harder frequency if you don't go now while the mother is holding the gate for you. Okay. So this your confirmation that you're not wrong about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your intuition. You're not late, you're not broken, but you are flame. Period. The war is over when we say it. We said this in either say her name or the Shekinah, you can't stop the return of Mu. One of the videos we spoke about this. So now we rise, now we speak, now we remember. This is for every scroll. This scroll is for every womb that ever knew. I've been here before, and this time I won't go quiet. Y'all, I ain't got nothing else to say besides light the motherfucking flame. It's already blazing. Walk through the gate. Shalom.